Hello, I'm Philip Rice from St Giles Church in Desborough, and my niece Anna has just recently had a baby. I thought he was going to be born on my birthday actually, but he came a couple of days before. But that's nice, and Anna and Rob have decided to call him Ezra, which is of course a biblical name, but I didn't really know much about Ezra in the Bible. I had to look it up. I thought he's probably one of the prophets, but it turns out he's not one of the prophets. He is a priest and a teacher of the law, and probably the author of one of the books detailing the history of the Israelite people, and possibly more than one book actually, not just the book of Ezra. He probably is the author of the book of Ezra, but also 1 and 2 Chronicles, and the book of Nehemiah as well. Or he may not have written any of them. Who knows? But he certainly is the main character in the book of Ezra, whether he wrote it or not. The main focus of the book of Ezra is the return of the Israelites from exile in Babylon and the rebuilding of the temple. And large parts of the book consist of lists of people who returned from Babylon to Jerusalem. And if you're looking for a biblical name for a newborn, this could be a great place to look. So what about Zatu or Asgad, for example? Some terrific names in there, hundreds of them. The main purpose of the author of the book of Ezra is to show how God fulfilled his promise given through the prophets to restore his exiled people to their own land through heathen rulers, and how he raised up great men, including Ezra and Zechariah and Haggai, to rebuild the temple, to re-establish the old forms of worship, and to put a stop to heathen practices. And what impressed me as I read the book of Ezra, in those parts that are not just lists of names, was that the people, as they returned to Jerusalem, set about praising and worshipping God with considerable enthusiasm. When you read the history of the Israelites in the Old Testament, there are good times and there are bad. In the bad times, nothing seems to go right for the Israelites. It's interesting to note that the good times seem to coincide with times when the Israelites are focusing on praising God and following his commands. When they stray from God, that's when things start to go wrong. Now, Ezra is a true man of God. His name crops up a few times in the book of Nehemiah, which covers much the same period of their history. In fact, as I said earlier, some people think that Ezra may have been the author of both books, along with the 2 books of the Chronicles. The book of Nehemiah is mainly about the rebuilding of Jerusalem's city walls. And in chapter 8, it says that when the wall was finished, Nehemiah called all the people together, and Ezra, the priest, brought the law before the assembly, which was made up of men and women, and all who were able to understand. He read it aloud from daybreak till noon, as he faced the square before the water gate in the presence of the men, women, and others who could understand. I'm not sure who the others were. There were men and women and others, children perhaps. And it says, all the people listened attentively to the book of the law. Ezra, the teacher of the law, stood on a high wooden platform built for the occasion. Ezra opened the book. All the people could see him because he was standing above them, and as he opened it, the people all stood up. Ezra praised the Lord, the great God, and all the people lifted their hands and responded, Amen, Amen. Then they bowed down and worshipped the Lord with their faces to the ground. The Levites then explained the law of God to the assembled people, making it clear and giving the meaning so that the people understood what was being read. Then Nehemiah, the governor, Ezra, the priest and teacher of the law, and the Levites who were instructing the people said to them all, "This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn or weep," for all the people had been weeping as they listened to the words of the law. And they had a party. All the people went away to eat and drink and to celebrate with great joy because they now understood the words that had been made known to them. It's amazing what a difference it makes to life when we understand the law of God, when we strive to follow it, and when we give God honour and praise. When things went wrong for the Israelites, it wasn't because God had abandoned them, but because they forgot about him. They forgot what he'd done for them, and they stopped giving thanks and stopped following his ways. I can't help feeling, as I look at Palestine and Gaza and Israel today, that God is weeping because the people have forgotten about him. One of the many minor commandments recorded in Exodus, following on from the 10 commandments that we all know in Exodus chapter 20, is "Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt." That's in Exodus 22 verse 21. If only that law of God was being followed today, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world. Because when we follow God's ways, things definitely go better. We learn of God's ways through Jesus. That's how we know that life with Jesus is better than life without Jesus. May God go with you. Amen.